Welcome and thank you for joining me today. Imagine embarking on a journey deep into the heart of Africa, where ancient secrets and modern curiosity collide. This is the story of a renowned researcher, Dr. Johnson, whose path unexpectedly crossed with something or someone that defied explanation. What began as a simple photograph turned into an expedition that could change everything we thought we knew about human history. Stay with me as we unravel the mystery of the woman who seemed to bridge the gap between the past and the present. When Dr. Johnson went to Africa for his research, he came across something that he had never seen before. He met a black woman who reminded him of an extinct species. Dr. Johnson became fascinated by the woman and had to know more. But when the woman started talking to Dr. Johnson, he knew something was wrong immediately. Dr. Johnson could barely believe what he was hearing. Before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. It wasn't easy to track down this strange woman. At first, he didn't think she was even real. But now, standing right in front of her, having a conversation, he began to doubt his assumption. Could this be the discovery of his lifetime? The woman revealed many bizarre details about her life to Dr. Johnson, things he could never have imagined to be real. He knew that the world needed to know everything that this woman was telling him, but how would he get them to believe this crazy story? He could only think of one thing: to do his best. His best chance was to take the woman back to the States with him. He knew it was a risky move, and the woman would never accept it, but he had no other choice. But what was going on with this Neanderthal woman? Why did she look like this? And what was Dr. Johnson going to do? Dr. Johnson was stunned when he first looked at the photo in his inbox. Someone had sent a picture to him of an African woman. They claimed to have found a real Neanderthal woman, but that was impossible, or so he thought. The picture of the woman was very convincing, or it was a very, very good Photoshop. There was only one way to find out the truth, and that was to go and see the woman with his own eyes. She was apparently part of a small and secluded tribe in Nigeria. The tribe was in contact with more developed cities, but only very minimally. They really liked their privacy. Apparently, this was not a village that Dr. Johnson could just walk into and demand to see the woman in question. He had already arranged for a local guide and translator to join him on the expedition, but that man did not know what Johnson's true intentions were. When he arrived at the airport, Johnson wanted to waste no time. But first, he had to get some information about the woman and the tribe, and there was nobody better to provide him with that information than the man who had taken a picture of the woman in the first place. The man's name was Ngo. He had recently graduated from the local university after growing up in a small tribe himself. He had been going around to tribes in the area to try and convince them to increase their contact with the modern cities. But this had not always garnered him the best reactions. A lot of these tribes wanted nothing to do with him or the outside world. They were perfectly happy to live isolated and in ignorance. Ngo had to run for his life on more than one occasion, but that still had not stopped him from pursuing his mission. That mission had led him to this strange-looking woman. He did not often take pictures of the people he met or the tribes he visited, but this was an exception. He also saw the potential if this woman would actually turn out to be real. With everybody convinced that the picture was fake, Dr. Johnson knew that he was probably the only one to check it out. It was a potentially very constant risk, but the small chance that it was all real made it worth it in his mind. After meeting up with Ngo, the young man revealed to him that he was indeed the only person to contact him directly with a result like this. He had not given the information to anybody else yet, and seeing that most interest in the picture had died down, that information was not likely to spread any further. In the opinion of Dr. Johnson, Ngo seemed as sincere as could be when discussing the woman. He promised hand on heart that she was real and that the pictures were not altered in any way. This is when Johnson really started to get excited. He came here with very few expectations as a way to keep from being very disappointed. But now he was finally allowing himself to start believing because he was very aware that this discovery could potentially skyrocket his career and give him worldwide exposure. After learning what he needed from Ngo, Johnson wanted to say goodbye to the young man, but Ngo was insistent on wanting to join the doctor on his expedition. He believed he could help, but Johnson was a lot less interested in this. He was not really willing to share the glory of this find, even though Ngo was the one who originally found her. It was a bit of ego from Johnson that he would eventually pay a very high price for. But seeing that he could not predict the error of this decision, Dr. Johnson came up with an excuse to keep Ngo out of the expedition. He told him that more people might be fairly intimidating to the tribe, and also that Ngo had a reputation for getting chased away by tribes. Johnson knew this from interactions they had on the forum. Ngo was not happy about it, but he realized that there was no way for him to tag along. He had to trust that the doctor would be fair with his actions and not forget who had actually found the woman. But Ngo did not even really care about the money and fame. He was just mostly curious about what was going on with her. He just wanted to help. Ngo's intentions were clearly very different from those of Johnson, even though the doctor kept telling the young man that they wanted the exact same thing. The only similarity between their intentions was that they wanted to find the woman. Johnson would quickly succeed in this. Ngo's directions were very easy to follow, and Johnson was out looking for the tribe the very next day. They lived relatively close to the city and were supposedly used to seeing other people. But when they arrived, it was clear that the tribe had never seen anybody like Johnson before. A white man was a rarity around here, but an old man like Johnson, truly something the tribe's people had never laid eyes on before. All of them wanted to touch him and interact with Johnson, something the doctor welcomed very much. He knew that it was in his best interest for the tribe to start liking him. Maybe this would actually convince the stranger woman to come to him instead of the other way around. But what was strange was that he had not seen even a glimpse of her yet, even though he had spent at least half an hour in the small village already. Eventually, Johnson did manage to find the woman, but she was sadly not who he hoped she was. The picture that Ngo had shown him was real, but after doing some tests on the woman, it turned out that she just had some birth deformities that made her face look like that. And so, Dr. Johnson's claim to fame went up in smoke.